So the first mechanic we see in the novice puzzle is the speed zone. As you can see, the player needs to cross this gap, but can't jump that far. This is where speed zones come in. It will increase the movement speed of the character, therefore allowing the player to jump farther. We also include a way for the player to get back to the speed zone in case he or she misses a jump. The second mechanic we encounter is the actual gravity gun. In this case, the player uses it to lower a bridge for themselves. If the player would fall down, the player would be killed and the level would reset automatically. The third mechanic we encounter in our novice puzzle is the slow motion. What we see here are fast moving blocks that the player will need to slow down to be able to assign gravity to them so that they float up and away. This will provide the player safe passage to the end goal, the golden sphere.
This is our intermediate level, and the goal is to get through these gates to the end of the hallway. So we use our gravity tool to get up. This is a brief introduction to what tools you need to use and just to give an easy way to progress. As you have seen right there, we use the gravity tool to lift one of the gates, introducing the player to the principle of lifting other objects by interacting with gravity objects. So this is for some standard platforming. This requires some jumps, as we want to keep an emphasis on traversal puzzles. So now we get more difficult traversals towards the gate gravity cubes. As you see, we just use speed zone to get across the gap, and then we use platforms. And it's important to not hit the ceiling, because then you tend to bounce downwards. The reason that we use the gates is to give the player a sense of progress as they progress through the puzzle, so they can look down the hallway and see they only need a few more gates to go. Of course, we want to keep the puzzle itself as hard as to keep them hard, but not too hard at an intermediate level. So here you see some gravity cubes, and you have to launch them into the air while timing them correctly with your own ascent, as you can only ascend from one spot, which requires some timing and may be difficult to pull off. But that is what we had in mind when we designed the gravity tool, to have a sort of timing along with quick jumps and quickly lifting or lowering objects as needed. So we jump over to the other gate and we lift it, and we can go back to the gate and see that the way is cleared. So we go down the hallway and we're done with the level.
In this left field level, we try to combine all of our mechanics in useful and challenging ways. We flipped the speed zone mechanic so that instead of an advantage, it becomes a burden to the player because they constantly have to use it. Because the player is moving so fast, he or she will now need to use slow motion to be able to manipulate objects in mid-air. The player needs to assign gravity to the cubes that are hanging in mid-air, but to do so, he or she will have to jump and then activate them in mid-air, and that's why they use the slow motion to slow that process down and actually be able to aim when needed. When the player finally manages to manipulate all the objects into the right position, he or she will create a path for themselves that will lead to the finish.
This is our mastery level. As you saw in the previous level, we introduced an element of danger where you were able to die. In the mastery level, we take this to the next step by introducing an active hazard that you need to work against and use your tactics and tools to to avoid. This can be seen in using the gravity tool to raise yourself, and of course sometimes you will need to time yourself to get from the next gravity board to the next. Also, you can use the speed zones to quickly traverse across the platforms, and we really want to give the player some freedom to use the tools they like to get to the end, to give them the feeling that they master what they learned, while giving them the ability to use these abilities to their preference. As you can see, this puzzle can be quite troublesome and requires a lot of good timing. So we use the platforms to get high enough to reach to the big pillar, and then we can use a speed zone to make a big jump towards the end, which marks the end of the level.